All right, boys and girls. So this is Module 6, Lesson 6. It is some review, some stuff that you'll find easy, some stuff that might be a little bit harder for you today. Let me get closer. Okay. I can hear Penny. You can see Penny laying down. I can hear her belly rumbling. So if all of a sudden I have to jump down, it's because she's puking, and I don't want her to puke on my bed, basically. So sorry, that's gross. I know, but she eats these red berries that she finds outside, and then she gets sick from them, and she does it like every other day, and I just don't understand. We're taking down the bush, but she still finds some. I don't even know. All right, so today is a good day to review our place value. So what am I saying by that? Well, we'll have our ones. Oh, I don't think the green you can see very well. I thought I'd try a different color, but that's not. I prefer it darker for you. All right, we'll do purple, or no, we'll do blue. We'll do blue today. Okay, so our place value chart would have ones, and I've been showing you this. And then we would have, yes, we do have tens over here. I just kind of ignore them right now. And here we have tenths. And then we have hundredths. Okay, and then we'd have thousands and continue that way, but we're going to just leave it at this. If writing this on a piece of paper would be a really good idea, so you could always kind of go back to it when you have to write the actual number in fraction form and in decimal form, but this could be very, very helpful to you. So if I have one whole, so I have one whole of something, and then I have 3/10, and I have 8 hundredths, excuse me. I would have 1 and 38 hundredths. So this would be read as 38 hundredths. Today we're going to look at numbers greater than 1. So that's the new part of it. It's just looking at numbers greater than 1. So how are we going to show that? Well, if we have this number, 1 and 22 hundredths, it means we have one whole, and then we have 22 hundredths. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these right now. These awesome. Well, you cannot see. Maybe I should just still go further back. That's better. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I need 9. Why did I just stop at 8? I don't know. All right, so 1 and 22 hundredths. So let's figure out how to shape this, okay? So one whole would be this whole one, wouldn't it? There is one whole. Simple. So now we look at 22 hundredths, and this is what we did yesterday. We figured out how to do this. So 22 hundredths has 2/10. How do I know it has 2/10? Right here tells me that that has 2/10. And then this has 2 hundredths. So how do we do that? Well, we shade in our 2/10. Here's our 2/10. Am I shading in 2 more? No, because this is 2 hundredths. So how do we split this into hundredths? We would draw 9 lines going down. Not going down, but horizontal lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we draw, okay, so, but we just split those 2/10 into 20 now. Well, yes. 2/10 is the same as 20 hundredths. So we have 22. So we just did it, 1 and 22 hundredths. It wasn't as bad as you thought. I bet you could have done this without me for sure. Now, how do we write this in decimal form? Here's our 1. And remember, I used to say to you, and means decimal in math. So when you're saying the number 143, you don't say 143 because it would be written as with a decimal. This is 1 and. This decimal stands for and. 1 and 22 hundredths. 1.22. Okay? So here we finally get to say and in math. So we're going to take that, and I had to erase it because I don't have enough room. And we are going to move from, I mean, you could write it, it doesn't matter if you're writing it in fraction or decimal form, that means the same thing. But we're going to move from that model and put it on a number line. Of course we're doing it on a number line. Now, if we were in class, I would absolutely do this on the number line. And no, sometimes the number line really helps us and sometimes it's not super beneficial. This is a really good one. This is something you need to know. Okay, I'm not going, well, I'll start at 0. And then here's 1, and then here's 2. How do I know I can stop at 2? Well, this number is over 1 for sure, but it's not greater than 2. So, of course, I'm going to divide this into tenths, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so how do we chart this on the number line? Let me just fix this up for a second. Okay, so 1 whole would be whoop, and of course we colored in that whole thing, right? So there's 1 whole, and now we go 2 tenths. So this would be 1 tenth, and this would be 2 tenths. You could write it in decimal form. So this is 1 tenth, this is 2 tenths. So do I go here? No, I don't go there, do I? So I got my 1 tenth, 2 tenths. Now we have to picture that not only did we divide it into tenths, but we actually divide it into hundredths, right? And that's obviously not drawn to scale. So each, see this part right here? That part, I'm making it bigger. I'm enlarging it. We're gonna zoom in on the computer. We break it into 10 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we go 1, 2. So this is actually shown down here. That means that when we went 1, 2, we're right about there. I am not drawing the little lines in between on this. This is small enough as it is. We can see from here that 2 hundredths is not that far in. So I approximated here. So this is where we have 1 and 22 hundredths. So this is taking it a step further today. This is really what we're doing. So our objective, I forgot to read it. Use the area model and number line to represent mixed numbers with units of ones, tenths, hundredths in fraction and decimal form. There's like a piece of wood on this. How strange is that? Okay. So, let me see. I feel like there's one other thing. The other part that we are learning today is it says match the unit form with a mixed number to its decimal and fraction forms. So that's something that we've been doing all along. It is hard though, even though you think that you understand it. Like you can say, okay, well that's 7 and 13 hundredths. Yeah, okay, you got that. That's 7 and 3 hundredths, okay? That's 7 and 3 tenths. But what's this? That's 7 and 30 hundredths, but it's also 7 and 3 tenths. Why? Because the 0 afterwards is fine to take off, but wait, are we really taking it off? No, we are picturing this and we're dividing it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and here's our 3/10. But we know that we can split this into hundredths. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's terrible, terrible, terrible drawing. But not only is it 3/10, it is 30 hundredths. Okay, so even though they look different, they actually really are the same. This one you would read as 30 hundredths, excuse me, and this is 7 3/10. So that's going to be another review that we do towards the end of the problem set. But like I said, it's actually a little bit harder than you would have expected. All right, so for number 1, we have A and B on the problem set. And it's essentially the same thing. It's taking that fraction, figuring out what it means in decimal form, shading in what we should be shading in, and then putting it on a number line. So it's a lot of work, but it's really not that bad. So our number is 1 in 15 hundredths. So write that in decimal form. So we have our 1 whole, right? And then 15 hundredths looks like this. 15 hundredths, that's 1/10 and 5 hundredths. Okay, first step done. Then we see 3 of these, and they all are drawn properly. Mine are not. So we need to shade in what we need to shade in, right? Can we shade in 1 hole right away? Yep. Go ahead and shade in 1 hole. That's the easy part. Now the next one says 15 hundredths, or the next part of it, I should say. That's 1 hole. So this I'm definitely doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now, 15 hundredths means 1/10. This is 1/10, right? And then 5 hundredths. 1/10. 5 ones, but they're not really ones, they're hundredths. So 1/10, I can shade in 1/10. Am I done? No, now I need 5 hundredths. No, I can't do the next 5 because those would be tenths. So I divide this like I'm supposed to. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow, not drawn to scale. And I color in 5. 3, 4, 5. There we go. 1 and 15 hundredths. 1 and 1/10 and 5 hundredths. That's 1 whole. There's my and, basically. My tenths, my hundredths. So, good. Now we have this number line. Do I need this guy? No, I don't. Now we have a number line. And this number line goes from 0 to 3 because they had 3 whole squares. I'm going to do mine 0 to 2 to save room, but we know that we didn't use that last area model, so I'm just not going to worry about it right now. So this will look a little bit different, but 0, 1, 2. That way you can see better. Again, I know yours goes to 3, but I know I don't need that 3. I didn't use that 3rd area model, so I'm okay like this. All right, so 1 and let me draw my lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so we go 1 whole, right? We go 1 whole, and then 15 hundredths means 1/10. 5 hundredths, right? 1/10. So we go 1/10, and then where are 5 hundredths going to be? Well, if I take this little tiny section and I divide it into 10 parts, we're going to go over 5 of them. So that's right in the middle. So here is 1.15, 1 and 15 hundredths. So it's right in between 1 and 2. And it's kind of like saying that's in between 10 and 20, right? If we had to find the difference between, well, if we had to find the middle of 10 and 20, it would be 15. All right, so we did all of A already. So let's move on to B, shall we? First part, we're going to write it in decimal form. We have 2 and 47 hundredths. 2 and 47 hundredths. So that means 2 and 47 hundredths. You probably could do that without me. Now, are we going to use all three of these? Yes, we are. Wait, how did I know that? Well, I already need to shade in 2 whole. So let's shade in 1, 2. That is 2 whole. And now I have to do 47 hundredths. I should probably do this correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's my 9th. I just did it already because I knew I needed to. Okay, 47 hundredths, that means 4 tenths, right? This is our tenths, this is our hundredths, and they have a TH at the end. 4 tenths, so I can color in 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Terrible job, I know. And then I need 7 hundredths, so I need 7 from this row. Column, excuse me, it's a column. The number 47, that stands for 40. Well, it doesn't stand for 40, but when you say it, you say 40, right? Did I color in 40 of those, even though I said it was 4 tenths? Yes. I also colored in 40 of them when they're broken up. So you can think of it that way too. I think you guys are probably good with that, but because I can't really ask you questions on here, you never know. Feel free to ask me any questions though. They made our number line nice and short here. They just have 2 to 3. So that's nice. Can you see? No, not really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. 2.47. 2 and 47 hundredths is what we're working on. Now, 0 started over here, so we already went to 2. So now we do 4 tens. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in between here, we have to split it into 10. So that's really hard to do. I bet you some of you are drawing little lines. So 7 is after half. So it's after halfway, but not all the way over. So we would say 2 and 47 hundredths is about here. If this were big enough that you can make 10 little hashtags or hash marks or whatever you want to call them, little dashes, whatever, then it would be approximately here. But even on your problem set, it's pretty small, so I don't think you have enough room to do that. All right, so see why this is important? It really actually is very important to be able to plot numbers correctly, especially decimals. All right, locate the points on the number line. So now to A and B, all we have to do is the number line. We don't have to actually color in the area model. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, 2 and 95 hundredths. Okay, 95 hundredths. So it looks like this. We don't even actually have to do this, but I find that this is beneficial to me. This stands for 9 tenths, and this is 5 hundredths. So if I start at 2 and I go 9 tenths past 2, I'm going to be right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tenths. And now I need to go 5 hundredths. So split this into 10 again, either in your head or on the paper. It's up to you. 5 is going to be right in the middle. So this is 2.95 or 2 and 95 hundredths. See, that wasn't so bad, was it? So B, we have 7 and 52 hundredths. So I'm going to erase this. Instead of 2 and 3, we have 7 and 8. And pretend that that didn't exist. Close enough. 7 and 52 hundredths. So 52 hundredths, that means 5 tenths and 2 hundredths. If we write it in decimal form, 7.52. 5 tenths and 2 hundredths. So if I'm going 5 tenths over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths over. And now I have to go 2 hundredths. So this part, you're going to picture breaking into 10 parts, and 2 would be right about here. So we have 7 and 52 hundredths. Okay, so look at that. We're already on the back. Now this chart is awesome because we get to write it in fraction form and in decimal form. So this is our like little review part where we say, okay, do we really know how to write these numbers? Because some of them really are tricky and you really have to say it. It would be so much easier if I could actually hear you saying it, because then I would know where you were going wrong, if you were going wrong at all. But we're just doing the best we can, right? All right, so 3A is 1, 2 hundredths. Now this is where you can, when I was talking about the chart, boys and girls, this is where it might be helpful for you to make a chart. Claire, I could see you wanting to make a chart. We have our ones, then we have our decimal, and then we have our tenths, and we have our hundredths. Okay? So it says 1, 1. So you can put a 1, 1 there, and you know that your decimal is there. And it says 2 hundredths. So here's my hundredths column, and I put 2 here. Well, then what do I put in my tenths? Well, we don't have any tenths, so we put a 0. So then move your numbers down, 1.02. I know some of you could have looked at that and done it without the chart. That's fine. But if it hurts, and if it doesn't hurt, if it makes your brain a little confused, write the chart down and then plug in your numbers and you'll be good. So that's our decimal form. And our fraction form, that's 1 2 hundredths. Some of you may have wanted to start with that because you're really good at writing fractions. So that may have been good for you, but it's up to you. So we already did A. So let's do B. I'm going to leave this chart here because this is what I'm going to use. It says 1 17 hundredths. So that's 1, and do I put 17 here? No. That's where it's a little bit confusing. 17 has 1/10 and 7 hundredths, doesn't it? Do we ever put 2 digits in one of these place value holders? Nope. 17 hundredths means it has 1/10 and 7 hundredths. Okay, so our number is 1.17. Now look at it and say, does that say 1 17 hundredths? Yes, it does. And then we put it in fraction form, 1 17 hundredths. You may have wanted to start it that way. Again, it's up to you. Okay, the next one says 2 ones and 8 hundredths. So this is an easier one. It says 2 ones and 8 hundredths. So what do we put here? We need a place value holder here, so it is 2.08. Now look at it. Does it say 2 and 8 hundredths? Yes, it does. We don't have any tenths. So, whoops, that should be bigger. 2 and 8 hundredths. Okay, D is 2 and 27 hundredths. So I know I can leave my 2 there actually. 2 and 27 hundredths. Do I try to put 27 here? Nope. 27 has 2 tenths and 7 hundredths. So it's 2 and 27 hundredths, or 2 and 27 hundredths. E, I keep looking at the first number. It says 4 ones and 58 hundredths. So let me do the fraction form first. It says 4 1, so that's my whole number, and 58 hundredths. Oh, I know I can write it like that, right? That says 4 and 58 hundredths. And I can write it like this, 4 and 58 hundredths. Did I need the chart? No. Could you put it in the chart still? Absolutely. Now F. F is a good one. It is 7 ones, so 7 ones, and 70 hundredths. 70 hundredths, right? 70 hundredths. So it's 7 and 70 hundredths. Well, what goes in here? 70 hundredths has 7 tenths, right? And no hundredths. Does that say 7 and 70? Yes, it does. It says 7 and 70 hundredths. But there's another way this one could be written. It doesn't have any digits in the hundredth column besides a 0. Isn't it still 7 tenths? So picture 70 hundredths right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 70 hundredths means I am shading in all of that, right? And that actually stands for 7 tenths. So that's a little tricky one. 70 hundredths means 7 tenths also. I know, I just blew your mind on that one. Even though we've done that before, you know, it's still a little bit tricky. All right, what I'm going to do for the bottom part, you're supposed to draw lines, and everyone's like, oh, yay, that's probably an easy part. Well, this one's actually a little bit tricky. So I'm going to talk you through it, and then I'm going to show you my book with the answers. I actually wrote in the answers, okay? That way you can kind of check yourself. So there is, one of these actually has 2 answers going from the left side to the middle column. And then going from the right side to the middle column, one of them also has 2 answers. So it is a little bit tricky in that respect. The first one says 7 ones in 13 hundredths. So actually, I'm still going to write some of this. So 7 ones and 13 hundredths. So we know that our whole number is 7, and then we have 13 hundredths. All right, so that one is the 1, 2, 3, 4th one down. So you can draw a line for that. The next one says 7 ones and 3 hundredths. Now, some of you can do a place value chart for that one. That would be great. But some of you know that that means 7 ones and 3 hundredths, right? Now, obviously, that's not what we're doing right this second. Right now, we're trying to match it to its decimal. So, does this have any tenths? It has no tenths, but then it has 3 hundredths. So this is a really good one to put in your place value chart too. So that one goes to that middle decimal, 7.03. The next one says 7 ones and 3 tenths. So, that's how we started, right? We had 7 ones and 3 tenths. Awesome. But guess what? This one has 2 answers. It's 7.3, but there's another one. So, what is 7.3 equivalent to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so if we did this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now picture I already have 7 of these filled in, okay? And I'm doing 3 tenths, 7.3. Here's my 3 tenths. How else can you say 3 tenths? You can say 30 hundredths. So the other answer, so 7.3 is the same as 7.30. 3/10 and 30/100 mean the same. They are equivalent fractions. Remember when we did 3/10 and we multiply by 10? I'll move this if you can't see it. We get 30/100. Remember that part? Okay, so that's why. So you drew a line to both of those. So you have 2 lines. And then the last one is 7/10, 3 1s. Oh, whoa, they are tricking us. Now we're going back to like our normal 10s and 1s. So that answer is actually 73. Crazy, right? All right, now we're going all the way over on the right side. So I'm trying to think which way you want to do this. I would probably just draw a line from all the way over on the right column to the decimal in the middle. So 7 3/100 would be equivalent to 7.03. That's the other way to write it. So you draw a line from, I'm all the way over on the right side to the middle part. And then they give us the number 73. Well, 73 is equal to 73, right? And then 7 13/100 is the same as 7.13, 7 13/100. So you draw a line to that one. And then this bottom one is the one that has 2. 7 30/100 is the same as 7.30/100, right? And 7.3, because this is 70 30/100, and this is 7 3/10. So I know that was a really long lesson, but most of it wasn't too bad, I think, but I'll show you. So see how I did that? Hold it for a minute and you can check your answers. You can also send me a picture of your work if you want, and I can check it that way. I mean, it's kind of hard, it's little, but I can still see it, so. All right, we'll be back with Monday's lesson 7, so on Monday, okay?